Hello students, this is Miss Dalton. Welcome to your first video of the new year. Today we're going to talk about slope. So let's read the TEK. It says, determine the slope of a line, given a table of values, a graph, 2 points on the line, and an equation written in various forms, including y equals mx plus b, ax plus by equals c, and y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So all three of those are different equations where you can see slope, and we'll be talking about those a little bit later. Okay, so let's first talk about slope. Let me zoom in a little bit. Okay, so slope can be represented in any of these ways right here. So let's see what it is. Okay, so slope is sometimes represented as m. It's also represented as rise over run, and change in y over the change in x. The formula for slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that's using coordinate pairs or ordered pairs. And then it can also be represented as the change in y over the change in x. This little triangle, we say that that is the change in y. It is delta, which is a Greek symbol that means change. Also, I want to point out that slope can also be, if you're reading a word problem, it could ask for the average rate of change, and that also means slope. So if you see that in a word problem, just keep that in mind, that they're really asking for slope. Okay, so let's look at these first three problems and let's figure out how to find the slope when you're looking at a graph. And again, this might be a big review for most of you coming from Algebra 1, but again, it's a new year, so we just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. Okay, so let's look at number 1. In this graph, when you find slope, you have to find two solid points. And what I mean by two solid points is you need to make sure that they go through a cross of the x coordinates and the y coordinates. So the first point that I see is right here on the y-axis. So I'm going to darken in that point right there. And if I follow the line down, the second point that I see is right here, where it is a solid point. Okay, so again, the slope is the rise over the run. So if I'm going to get from one point to the other, I'm going to rise. Now, I always start at the bottom one, but of course you could start on the top one as well. So you're going to rise 2, and you're going to run 1, 2, 3, but because you're going in the backwards direction, that's considered -3. So if I'm going to write my slope, again, it's rise over run, so you want to write the number that represents your rise, which is 2 over -3. And because one of the numbers is negative, that means it is a negative slope, so you could bring the negative out front. If the top one was negative, but the bottom was positive, it would still be negative. So if one of the numbers is negative, then you have a negative slope. You can also double check that by looking at the line and seeing that the line is going down from left to right, and so it does have a negative slope. Okay, let's look at number 2. Number 2 is a special case. This is what's called a horizontal line. It's in the direction of the horizon, so it's flat. And when you have a horizontal line, again, you can pick 2 points on that line. I'm going to pick this point, and of course this point. It could be any of the points. But I want you to think of it this way. If the slope is rise over run, am I rising when I go from one point to the other? No, I'm not. So I'm going to put 0. But when I go from the left point to the right point, I've ran 2 in the positive direction. So it's like you have 0 over 2. Well, anytime you have 0 divided by a number, it's still 0. So the slope for a horizontal line will always be 0. All right, let's look at the difference on number 3. Number 3 is a vertical line. And again, if I'm going to pick 2 points on this line, I can pick any 2 points. And if I'm going to write my slope, slope is rise over run. So when I rise from one to the next point, I am rising. I'm rising, in this case, 2 places. But am I running? No, because running would be left to right. So I would have a 0 for the run. And if you remember your fractions, anytime you have a 0 in the denominator, that is considered undefined, because you cannot divide by 0. So in this particular case, my slope, and this would be true for any vertical line, it is an undefined slope. Okay, in this next set of problems, we have 2 ordered pairs, and we're going to try and find the slope. Well, if you remember from up top, your slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's use this formula to find what our slope is. Okay, again, it doesn't matter which order you go in for your y's when you're subtracting, as long as you go in the same order with your x's. So if I'm going to find the slope between these 2 points, I'm going to start with the point that is on the left. So this point on the left is x comma y. The point on the right is x comma y also. So if I'm taking y2 minus y1, I can take, if I take this 7 and minus this 2, put that on top, for the denominator, I'm going to have to go in the same order. So if I started on the left, subtract right, then with my x's, I'm going to have to go on the left and subtract the right. So 4 minus 3. My slope would be 7 minus 2 is 5, and 4 minus 3 is 1. And then let's go ahead and simplify that, which would be just 5. So the slope on this particular problem is 5. Let's move on to the next one. M equals. So if I'm going to take my y minus my other y, so I'm going to take negative 5 minus 4 over, take my x's in the same order, negative 3 minus 3, and now go ahead and do that. Negative 5 minus 4 is negative 9, negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. Go ahead and simplify that. A negative divided by negative is positive, and that simplifies to be 3 over 2. You want to leave it as an improper fraction when you're dealing with slope, so we're going to leave it like that. Okay, for number 6, why don't you go ahead and try that one on your own, and pause the video while you're trying it, and then when you're ready to check your answer, go ahead and hit play again, and let's see if you get it right. Okay, the slope is negative 2. How did you do? If you missed this one, go back and check your work with the negatives. When you take negative 7 and you minus a negative 1, if you notice these little blue marks here, a minus negative changes to a positive. So I went ahead and changed those to positive. Same thing on the bottom. If you take negative 2 minus a negative 5, the minus negative becomes positive. So I made those blue marks and made them plus. Negative 7 plus 1 is negative 6, and negative 2 plus 5 is 3. Divide it, and you get negative 2. Okay, on this last one, they have the ordered pairs written in a table. So what you want to do is you want to take 2 points from this table. It does not matter which points you take. I'm going to take these 2 right here. I'm going to rewrite them. I'm going to write 2, 1, and 5, 0. By taking these 2 points out of the table, then all it becomes is the problems that we just finished. So you want to set up your m and use your formula. So I'm going to take y2 minus y1. I'm going to take the 1 minus 0. And then for the x's, take 2 minus 5, because again, you have to go in the same order that you did on top as you do on the bottom. 1 minus 0 is 1, 2 minus 5 is negative 3, so this is a negative 1/3 slope. Alright guys, hopefully this first video wasn't too painful for you. Go ahead and submit the online form after watching the video, and we'll see you in class tomorrow so that we can practice. Have a good evening.